Welcome back to another episode of Can You Believe That? I am the car wizard of YouTube fame. You guys have seen me on Hoovie's Garage, you see me on TV, and you've probably seen some of the things that my friend Tommy has been behind the camera on all over TV. He's also a paranormal guru.
That's very kind of you to call me the guru. I'm just a guy who's fascinated by all things weird, which is why we created this channel for all of you, because we want you to come here and enjoy the weird with us. Or was that weird? Did I say something weird? I don't know.
No, that's what we're here to do, is talk about things that are weird. A lot of topics that we bring up on this channel, guys, is stuff that the average public actually shies away from. They don't want to talk about it. They feel uncomfortable. We bring it out in the open here. We can discuss it. We don't talk over one another or say rude comments. We're here to learn. And that's what this channel exists for. Tommy's right about that.
Yeah, we like to explore the weirdness, but we also like to be respectful. And so we want to show everyone out there, because we know there's a lot of strife and politicalization. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. A lot of politics, a lot of people with different ideas and viewpoints. You know what? We can have these discussions. We can have all kinds of discussions if we just are willing to listen. And so I'm an occultist, the farthest thing from what Wizard is, who is a devout Christian. But yet here we are still coming together and sharing our perspectives with all of you. And we want you to keep sharing your perspectives in the comments below. But today's episode is really special, Wizard. What do we got?
We're going to talk about the moon, and specifically structures that could possibly exist on the moon or possibly in the moon. It could, and there's some movies out there, we'll talk about it here in a minute, that maybe have the idea that the moon itself is hollow. I've heard about this, Tommy. I've heard people say that if you get your telescope out, you can see structures on the moon. There could be prior civilizations, or maybe other civilizations have built things and abandoned it. I really don't know about a whole lot about it. What have you heard?
Oh, so much. And I've actually got a personal story that I'm going to save for the end for everybody.
Okay.
I don't know how I become this magnet for weirdness, but it really is like my life. Like, I know a lot of people out there, and I've read the comments, are like, oh, that's a fishing story, or that's a tall tale. I am one of those people that apparently just attracts the strange, and the strange comes to me, and in ways that you don't expect, which I'll share at the end of the show. But what have we heard about the moon? Well, there's a lot of different theories, right? So first we got to talk about what science says the moon is. And in terms of science, it's an object that is in space that regulates our tides, helps create and maintain our atmosphere. It is a kind of a quintessential part of why they believe we were able to adapt, evolve, and grow. But there's a lot of scientific, I don't want to say strife, but a little bit of a question mark as to how the moon got there. The first theory is that the moon is sort of leftover pieces of Earth. In the scientific tradition of the Big Bang and all that, you have these clouds of particles that get denser and denser as they coagulate and become a planetary body. In that theory, you have the moon and the Earth close together, but somehow form two different entities, so to speak. That would make sense, except for that some of the moon elements are older, in fact, than Earth in some ways. They also don't account for the fact that the moon is one of the only planetary bodies that we've been able to see that acts the way it does versus other moons with other planets in our own solar system. So there's an anomaly there. The other theory that a lot of people go with is that the moon came from a Mars-sized chunk of stuff, for lack of scientific terminology, because I'm not a scientist. Giant Mars chunk of stuff hit early Earth as it was being formed, crash, boom, stuff goes flying, and you have particulates that then become the moon. Again, based on the dating of things, it's really hard to say that that's what happened, because it's almost like the moon is made from older material than the Earth. But, you know, if it's a proto-Earth that gets hit, that could account for some of that. Sure. Then the last theory, which nobody in the scientific community really believes anymore, is called the capture theory. Capture theory is moon was just some sort of asteroid coming through, got stuck in our gravity, and then decided to stick around and hang out. The problem with that is both the size of the moon, its distance, there's just all these little things that in science don't quite make sense for the capture theory to be applied, because is our gravity enough to capture this thing and keep it there? We're not a giant moon. If that were the case, you'd see a lot more stuff with Saturn and Jupiter. We're Earth, and this is our only moon, and it only ever faces one side towards us. Just a bunch of anomalies. So that has led to our conspiracy speculations. And in those conspiracy speculations, like Wizard said, one of the big ones is that, well, if the moon maybe wasn't brought here naturally, well, how was it brought here? And that leads to the first theory, which is, and this is far out, so put on your tinfoil hats and let's go for a ride. Maybe the moon was a spaceship of sorts. And I shouldn't laugh because some people really believe this, and I'm so sorry. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the absurdity of what's coming out my mouth. The moon as a spaceship. Why is it that people believe that? Well, if you look at old Sumerian and African Zulu tribe, like their early beliefs, they talked about a time before the moon was in the sky. And so before the moon was in the sky, there was a lot of weather issues, let's say, where there was just this constant mist over the planet. And once the moon appeared, everything corrected. Well, how would the moon just appear unless the COT theory, capture theory is right? It had to have been parked there. And the reason a lot of people, including like you watch Ancient Aliens, they talk about this at length. The distance from the Earth to the moon is so perfectly aligned with how we get our solar eclipses. Those objects have to be at an exact distance for it to be almost a perfect solar eclipse, and we've seen that. Now the moon, its orbit is slowly decaying and getting further away from Earth, so it's changing that dynamic. But essentially, like, we have pretty amazing and pretty near perfect solar eclipses, which would only happen if the moon was in a specific position away from Earth. It also works because where it's parked, I'll say parked if it's a spaceship, where it's parked is in the perfect position for our tides and to keep our weather moving the way it does. So these early traditions talk about how it was a saving grace. It made the Earth more habitable, more safe for us once that moon arrived on the scene. Then there's a whole question of who put it there. I don't have any idea of that. We won't even talk about that. But what do you think about the spaceship theory?
I don't believe that it's a spaceship from a Christian perspective. It mentions in the Bible that God put the lights in the sky and considers like the moon and the stars to call it the lesser lights. He put the sun and to give us heat and everything that we need for to live, but the moon is to govern the night. It kind of sets the night and the day separate from one another. Even from a scientific perspective, no matter how you look at why the moon exists or what it does, we all can agree that life on Earth depends on the moon. There is animals that procreate based on exact moon movements.
Yeah.
The ocean moves based on where the moon is located. We have high tide, low tide. The moon is involved with women's ovulation, things of that nature. The moon really governs more than just being a light that floats around the Earth. It really makes life possible, even as much so as the sun.
Yeah.
Life as we know it anyway here on Earth. But as far as it being a spaceship, it kind of brings to mind a movie that I've seen. It's called Moonfall.
What the hell are you?
The operating system of your moon.
The moon actually ends up being hollow. There's like a base or something inside the moon, and there's this AI swarm or some kind of nanotechnology that's taken over the moon, and it threatens to destroy life on Earth by moving the moon too close to the Earth. In that movie, they go about the idea of when the astronauts did land on the moon, which I do believe they did, Tommy.
Me too. And we could do a whole episode on the lunar landing and whether it's real or whether it was something that Stanley Kubrick directed.
It's definitely something you're going to see an episode on, guys. We can all chat about it.
Yeah.
But they say in the movie when they landed on the moon, it made like a hollow ring, and like if you could step on it, it sounded hollow. And they expound upon that in the movie. And then there's this huge structural machine type of a base inside of the moon. I personally don't believe that. And it's interesting you mentioned like the perfect alignments and how everything is exactly like with the eclipses and stuff. And in the Bible, from my belief system, and this is not forced upon anyone, but in the Bible, it talks about how you would see signs that God is who he says he is, he's real, he exists. He puts these things in places so that a human can say, this had to have had intelligent design. This has to be on purpose. It's not haphazard. It's not just a big bang. Or that's kind of my belief system on that. Other people have different belief systems.
Yeah.
But as far as it being a spaceship, I would probably not go too far into believing that, I guess.
That's fair. I will say though, let's go back to the hollow moon theory.
Mm-hmm.
So science has tried to dismiss the conspiracy claims, we'll call them, or the alternative theories about the bases and that the moon is a base. But let's start with what science believes. Yes, the moon has a sort of hollowness to it. And in fact, a preeminent NASA scientist said, we're pretty sure that it's more hollow than it is homogeneous, meaning that it's a complete structure inside.
Hmm.
And it's definitely more hollow than Earth.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff.
So upon completing their mission, Apollo 12 actually dropped their lunar module on the moon purposefully, not just leaving space trash, although they were leaving space trash. But anyway, that aside, the test was to see if they could get seismic activity to tell us more about what the makeup of the moon is. And so they dropped the lunar module near some seismic instruments that they left on the surface. And like you said, it rang like a bell, is the quote that everybody quotes over and over again.
As for the meaning of it, I'd rather not make an interpretation right now, but it is as though one had struck a bell, say, in the belfry of the church.
It just means that there was enough hollow activity on the seismograph that indicated there's not a lot going on underneath.
Right.
Then on the Apollo 13 mission, which Werner von Braun was a part of all of these, we talked about him in previous episodes as like the father of the V2 rocket. He was a Nazi brought over to America during Project Paperclip after we defeated Germany in World War II. So he's not a great guy, but he's a brilliant man, which you can definitely separate the two. I don't believe in Nazis. I don't like Nazis. I am Indiana Jones when it comes to Nazis.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
But this guy was brilliant, and as part of our Project Paperclip, the covert way of bringing a bunch of these Nazis over to work on our stuff, they brought him in, and he basically was one of the founding members of NASA. Werner von Braun said, okay, let's make something heavier, drop that on the moon. So Apollo 13 goes up, they drop a much heavier payload, and so Apollo 12's mission drops the lunar module. Seismic activity showed that it rang like a bell for about an hour. The second mission, Apollo 13, drops their payload. It rang for nearly 3 hours. Well, maybe even over 3 hours. So yeah, the moon has some hollowness to it. Now, scientists are going to tell you the reasoning is it's probably very cavernous in there and there's no water. So between the no water and the caverns, like, yeah, it's going to ring a little bit more like a bell. But then you look at things like, well, how come all of the material on the top, the rocks, the dirt, dates back older than what we found below the surface of the moon? Because that's the opposite of the Earth. Older stuff inside, and then as you get to the outer crust, it's newer and newer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Moon's not like that. Moon's opposite. Moon has no atmosphere, no magnetism, but yet a lot of the materials on the moon are magnetic. Moon is rich in things that we don't have naturally occurring on planet Earth. We create them in labs, and yet they occur naturally on the moon. And then there's rare earth minerals that exist on the moon in a plethora that, we just don't have as much of here, and we're not that far apart. We're space neighbors, right? So these are the facts that I'm looking at. And I'm thinking, maybe there is something to this hollow moon theory, just based on the science, even aside from anything. Now you get to the conspiracy theory side, the alternative theory side, which is the moon is a hollow structure, but it's a structure. It is a created thing. And why do people believe that? Well, you'll hear a lot of hubbub on the internet about people seeing structures on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear a lot of stuff about, and this is scientifically validated, this stuff, not the structures, but there are things that happen, like in the crater of Pluto, there is an intermittent mist seen forming. Well, there's no water on the moon, so where's the mist coming from?
Interesting.
And it's not coming from recent meteor strikes. And even weirder is between 1540 and 1967, NASA sort of correlated all this data about light flashes on the moon, specifically one called the blue gem, which was a blue light that emanated from one of the craters. These flashes happen intermittent, and they've been going on, obviously, for centuries. Now, you'll have scientists say, oh, that's probably just meteor strikes or light reflecting off of glassy parts of the surface, which is all very possible. But what a lot of people speculate is that these lights are artificial, that they're happening because there are structures on the moon. There are beings on or in the moon. And so that's led to a lot of people thinking that, hey, maybe this is like essentially, have you heard of a hunting hide, wizard?
No, I've never heard of that.
Hunting hide is a way that you hide yourself from your prey. So if you're out duck hunting, or blind is another term for it, you'll put up blinds or hides to keep yourself hidden from whatever you're hunting. There is a theory that this is what the moon is, that the moon was created or put there or exists to ensure that life can happen here, that the tides can happen, like you said, Wizard, but it's also for us to be observed. And so that's where it gets, we're going deep down the rabbit hole now, although the spaceship idea was more down the rabbit hole. But like, there's a lot of people that really believe this, and there's a lot of credible people that believe this. So let's talk about a guy named Sergeant Carl Wolf. He was an Air Force technician. He swears that he was shown photographs of the moon that had structures. Now, this is where my personal story connects. I would have never believed that. I believe in a lot of crazy stuff, as you can see from this channel, right? I believe in all kinds of crazy. But this is one that I'm like, come on, structures on the moon, you're BSing me.
Yeah.
Well, one of my first jobs when I moved to California was I went to work at a place called Lowry Digital. John Lowry owned it. He was a gentleman who did effects work and visual effects before like computer generated stuff. He was doing hand painting, all kinds of crazy stuff. And he learned how to like fix bad film in order to like preserve movies for future generations and to put them on Blu-ray. So I was there doing the fixing stuff. But on his wall in his office, he had dozens of pictures of the moon. And I just thought, like, he must be an avid astronomer, right? So in my job interview with him, I go, so John, can you tell me, like, why do you have so many moon pictures up? And he goes, oh, I worked on those. And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, I worked on all those. Yeah, you should have seen it. There's all kinds of structures on the moon that, you know, you can clearly see if you look at it. We had to paint it all out.
Wow.
Nonchalant, says that, and then moves on. We never talk about it again. But
that's
this
crazy.
is a guy, as long as I've worked with him, he's never been a BS artist. He's never told me a lie. He was a very honest, kind man. I mean, probably one of my kindest bosses I've ever worked with. I believe it. I believe when he says, like, I'm proud of the work I did on these. I painted all of these by hand so you couldn't see the structures that are on the moon. And these are the same photos that NASA released to the public after sending orbiters there to take photographs. So I 100% believe him. I don't have any reason to doubt John, and rest in peace. He passed away a few years ago. But yeah, that was a crazy story. And it was the first time I really thought, well, maybe there's something to this. And when you have different astronauts coming back or other people in the scientific community that have seen evidence of this, it's kind of a mounting thing where there's only so much smoke before there's fire. And while there may not be fire on the moon, there may actually be structures on the moon.
You got me now where I want to go buy a telescope this weekend and go start looking at the moon.
I know. I wonder where all the good stuff is. But, you know, if it was all on the forward-facing side, we probably would have seen it by now. There would have been enough out there. A lot of the stuff seems to be coming from the dark side of the moon, or what they believe are the structures are more prominent on the dark side of the moon. And those are the photos that are the ones that are harder to get released. Those are the ones that got worked on. And we as amateur astronomers can't point a telescope at the back end of the moon because the moon doesn't rotate, which again is a weird phenomenon in terms of lunar objects. Just seems really convenient. We can't see what's on the other side. It also seems convenient why so few of our countries have gone back to the moon after these initial missions.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I kind of think of things from a perspective, if there is a spacefaring species out there that can travel long distances really fast or go across the galaxy or across the universe, wouldn't it be a perfect place if you wanted to observe humanity and not be seen and have a base, like a large base on the backside of the moon, and you could go to and from and do all your research and do what you need to do and never be seen by a human eye?
Yeah. I mean, for all we know, those flashes people are seeing, if they're not lights, maybe it's just reflection off of telescopes or cameras or whatever they may have. Hey, maybe Earth is just a reality show for the universe. I don't know. But maybe if there's enough people saying that there's structures there probably is structures there. Now, are we the ones who built them? Are we even a part of that? Or is it these extraterrestrials or non-human intelligences? That's the question. Now, from your perspective, Wizard, I know we talked about how maybe someone's misconstruing aliens and they're actually angels coming from your perspective. So, and if you want to watch our discussion on that, you can click on the link wherever it's going to be. But I would say that, maybe you said God created the moon. Maybe he created it as a place for the angels to watch over us. I don't know. You'd have to explain your perspective, but that's the only way I could kind of fit it into what you believe.
Yeah, that could go two ways. I don't believe, like I mentioned, that the moon itself is a spaceship or it's a robot inside of there or mechanized kind of an object. Like I believe from my belief system that it is created by God and it's, authentic, like it says in the Bible. But on the same plane of thought, I could be led to believe that either a spacefaring species could have used or be using it for like a space station, taking something that was created and using it for their own benefit or their own use. Or like we talked about in previous episodes, if all these UFOs we're seeing are actually could be maybe not all of them, but some of them could be heavenly or even beings from hell, transporting, moving around. If those things prove to be true in existence, they also could be using the moon. I couldn't be led to believe that it was brought here or that it's a spaceship, but I could be led to believe that this object that was made biblically by God has been overtaken by some other species or spirits or something of that nature. Yes.
So kind of like a hunter putting up a tree stand. We didn't create the tree. We just put the stand in the tree to watch the deer.
Right. That's how I would see things. And that's definitely, you guys, let's talk about it in the comments. Let us know what you think about the moon, where you think it came from, and what your idea of all the different structures that possibly exist. What is your idea on that? I'd be interested to read those comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting topic. There's a lot to it. Obviously, we just are touching the surface of the moon. We're just scratching the surface here. But it is interesting, like the science is still so unsettled with the moon that sometimes leaves too much room for speculation. But it also is nice that there's no definitive because the speculation may turn out to be accurate or true.
Yeah.
So that speculation is perfect for us because we love speculating here. And who knows, it may be true. Again, your comments below. Tell us what you think.
I have an idea, Tommy.
What's that?
You're in the film industry. We could throw an idea, do like a sizzle reel or something of a movie where they go to the dark side of the moon and it's a complete advanced civilization that's always been there for 45,000 years or a million years. Who knows? And it's like, this has been here. And I think that'd be an awesome movie.
I think so too, but I think we would be the neighbors that they lock their doors when they drive by us. So maybe they wouldn't want us there. I don't know.
That'd be an awesome movie. I think it would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be fun. But, as we always do in this, if you have questions, write them down below. Do you mind if we answer a couple, Wizard?
Yeah, let's answer some questions.
Right. This one comes from HILMGM. Hillman? I'm not going to even try. I'm sorry, HIL. Or shall I call you GM? So Hi, guys. I have a question. Is there any validity to good luck charms?
I like to think about luck sometimes and maybe kind of joke about it. Maybe I'll carry this special wrench I have when I'm working on a car for good luck or something. I don't fully believe in luck, but think about it this way. A lot of people who observe the Christian faith carry a cross necklace or
Mhm.
something for good fortune or to bring a good, maybe they treat it as good luck.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some validity there, but as far as carrying a horseshoe or a little rabbit's foot on a keychain for good luck, and I've even heard people who ride Harleys or like biker type dudes that have a little bell that hangs from the front of their Harley to scare away evil spirits and bring them good luck or something. I
Yeah.
don't really buy into that, but at the same time, there is some validity to it, even in the Christian faith.
That's a good answer. My perspective is a little different because of the work I do and because of my belief structure. So I think talisman and trinkets and charms can have an effect.
Okay.
As we talked about with John last episode, a lot of it comes down to the intention put into the object. Doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
it's haunted or cursed. It just means that there's an intention gravitated to it. So, having a piece that was, say, on the altar of a pulpit somewhere in a church that was used in daily mass or in daily ceremonies, there's an energy to that object. And
Mm-hmm.
for positive or for negative, but I mean, in those circumstances, I hope positive. But the idea that there's these energies that can intertwine with items and objects. Talisman have been around since the beginning of humanity.
Yeah.
In even ancient Sumeria, there were little talisman of the different deities or different things. Like in Turkey and in some parts of the Middle East, you have the evil eye, which is meant to scare off negative energy or bad juju, as we'll call it. So,
Mm-hmm.
do I think that those things have an impact? If you believe in them, they do. I think that's the easiest answer. If you believe it does,
Yeah.
and whether that's power of attraction, whether that's some connection to the divine, whether that's just simple willpower, if you believe in it and it seems to be working, then yeah, it can obviously have an impact. I mean, they find in scientific studies that placebo works. I want to say it's like over 30%. It's probably higher. Hopefully, I correct myself in the graphic below, but yeah, essentially, placebo does have something to do with how we interact with the world and how we affect the world. And, to me, those talisman and those trinkets are just part of that whole endeavor. And I think they
Okay.
can have an effect. But I could be wrong. So please tell us in the comments if I'm wrong. I always love reading those ones. Next question we have is from one of our usuals, Gemma. So, Gemma, thank you for writing all your questions. Gemma writes, can simply having an interest in the paranormal without engaging in occult practices, ghost hunting, or reading related materials, but enjoy the videos that feature investigations or discussion, open someone up to potential hauntings or attachments, even as just an observer? Well, I have an answer for that. Do you want me to go on this one?
Yeah, you go first on this one, Tommy.
Short answer is yes. A lot of it comes down to your personal belief and how comfortable you are with the subject. If it's just ghosts, probably not. But unfortunately, you do have other forces like demonic forces that are out there, and they really enjoy propagating and spreading fear and causing issue. So there's a reason I never shared any of the evidence from my truly demonic cases that I did, and that's because I felt like it was a way of spreading that
Right.
entity to other people. It almost does act like a form of invitation in a way, I think. But I just don't chance it. Like if I know someone's airing a haunting and like say a TV show or a live stream and it's a demonic place, like I won't even watch. I just don't want to invite that. So anyone who's like, oh, we're investigating the Sally House or we're investigating Bobby Mackey's or any of these places that are known demonic haunts, I just avoid it because
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in connecting to that energy and feeding it or in giving it attention. And
Right.
so I think if you just play it safe and say, all right, just ghost hunting, it's fine. Like even going out paranormal investigating, it's fine. You can run into stuff that will follow you home, the hitchhiker effect. But for the most part, it doesn't usually happen. Generally, you're more attracted to people that have psychic abilities anyway. So if you don't, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you even have an inkling that you're empathic or have some sort of psychic cognitive ability, then maybe just avoid it, you know? And if you're, we talked about this last time, if you're scared or nervous about it, just don't. It's not worth it. You know,
Yeah,
we try to provide stuff in a safe environment. We also try to give people tools on how to help themselves or help their way through these situations. And we don't share evidence that we think will bring problems to all of you. So we try to be respectful in that manner and to watch out for all of you guys because we do care about everybody.
I have two things to add to that, I guess two different ideas. Number one, if you're scrolling through Facebook or scrolling through YouTube videos or looking at things or watching movies and there's an entity in your house, maybe you haven't even noticed, it's just watching and observing you. What you're seeing or what you're watching could be seen as intent to invite. Oh, that's what you're into. Let me show you a little something about that. Or you're scrolling through on your phone and you're looking at different things you really shouldn't be looking at. And if there is an evil entity nearby, they could see that as, all right, you want to open that door? I'll show you what's on the other side. It could be done that way. You have to be careful. And the second thing I'll add is I've actually seen movies that I've just paused it or stopped the movie altogether. I like to watch horror movies. I like Aliens. I like Predator, all those things. They don't really get into religion or anything into those types of movies too much. But I have watched some horror movies in the past that involve exorcisms or demonic activity. They will go so far as to mention names of demons and actually recite actual occultist or demonic practices. Maybe even the movie you're watching could call forth that demon. That would be something I'd be afraid of.
I kind of want to use that to springboard into another thought, though. There's a lot of talk about Hollywood being filled with Satanists and occultists, myself excluded, but I am part of that. There's just so many people that go to Hollywood, Los Angeles, or New York, and they go to get into the film industry. Now, I've been around a lot of fairly big people in this business. And I can tell you, I don't think they're all Satanists and they're not all drinking adrenochrome in the woods out of, scared children. A lot of times the stuff you see in the movies, it's like there's a nugget of truth or like there's a real symbol, but it doesn't make sense in terms of the scheme of what they're doing. Because essentially a production designer is like getting paid a decent amount of money to create a set. And they're like, okay, well, let me look at a book. Oh, there's a symbol. That looks kind of cool. And then they throw it up there. They don't necessarily know what the meaning is. Like, you wish that people would spend all the time thinking about the meaning of what the symbol is that they put up. But the truth is, a lot of people don't when they're making a movie because you're just getting something done on a budget in a tight time frame and usually for less money than it's worth for you to do the thing. So unless it's a movie like, or a show like Breaking Bad, I should say, where Breaking Bad's production design was stellar and they spent obviously a lot of time and effort thinking through everything, every color, every placement of a majority of stuff. That's not the case in most films. Most films, it's like production designer does their thing, they mock something up, they get to creating it, and it's just like, cool, I found this in a book, found this in a book. It's kind of related, sure. That's a lot of what you see. It's not intentional. It's not trying to conjure demons into your house. I'm not saying that it is impossible that it doesn't happen, but it's not the majority of it. So for those of you who think like everyone in Hollywood is a Satanist, I can assure you that's not the case. It's a lot of people just trying to work hard, make a living doing something that they fairly enjoy. Although a lot of times when you're doing it, you're not enjoying yourself because it's hard work, but they're not maliciously trying to like curse you or your family. So I just wanted to share that because I know that comes up a lot. And it's just something that kind of gets my goat a little bit. Not the goat I'm going to slaughter later for my Santeria practice. I don't actually.
No, don't do that.
It does kind of get my goat that people just assume everyone's an occultist and that they're all evil and they're all trying to spread it. And it's like, no, like most of the time we're just trying to make our paycheck so that we can pay our absurdly huge rent in Los Angeles and then go out and have a drink afterwards. So there you go. Take it or leave it. But that's all the questions we have for today.
Hold on. I have one more thing I wanted to add to that before we.
All right. Bonus wizard moment.
Yes. Before we close it out, I have something to add, Tommy.
Sure.
This goes along with the question that was just asked. This is an episode we could do in the future. This is a really good idea. Is that the movies, and we should talk about movies evoking something through a television set to a viewer who's watching it, but What about an episode on movies about evil entities where on the set evil was experienced for real?
Well, there are definite examples of that, the most famous being the movie Poltergeist. But
Yes.
yeah, we should absolutely do an episode. If you guys want to see us do that episode, go in the comments section. Let us know. Yes, we want to see all the cursed or haunted movies.
That'd be great.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining us. Again, short episode. Thank you all. We appreciate it. We are coming up on 10,000 subscribers. So if you can share this video, help us hit that 10K mark, that would be awesome. It's just a personal milestone for us. It lets us know that you enjoy the content and, you know, we still enjoy making it, but it's always nice to see that the channel is growing and that there's more people getting to watch the stuff. And it's not just a handful of people watching us do this or us talking to ourselves in the camera, you know.
Definitely. And let us know in the comments what you think about this episode, and keep on posting the questions for future episodes so we can answer your questions for you. But like Tomy said, let your friends know. You have people that you know or family members that are even remotely into the paranormal or cryptids or religious themes or evil or things of that nature. We explore all those topics on this channel. So share it with all your friends and family, and make sure to hit the subscribe button here, because we have many, just like we came up with ideas on this episode for future episodes, there's so many more to come, definitely.
Absolutely. And thank you again, everybody. We really appreciate you. Like, subscribe, share, and do all the YouTube-y things. And catch us next week for another episode. Well, 2 weeks. Catch us in 2 weeks for another episode.